네, 안녕하세요. 잘 들리시나요? 채팅으로 혹시 잘 들리는지 댓글 달아주시면 감사하겠습니다. 네, 저희 한 1분 뒤에 이제 시작할 텐데요. 네, 제가 한 가지만 지금 말씀드릴 부분이 지금 저희가 줌으로 지금 하고 있고 그다음에 이제 유튜브 라이브로도 지금 동시에 진행을 하고 있거든요. 그래서 그 줌에서 유튜브로 송출되는 과정 속에서 한 30초 정도 지연이 있는 부분 참고해 주시면 좋을 것 같아요. 네. 지금 3시 5분인 것 같은데 시작해도 괜찮겠죠? 최승필 교수님? 마이크 되시나요?
음.
이게 팀이 하는 소리가
잘 들리시나요? 교수님?
Earphone. All right. I'm speaking.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. 네, 알겠습니다. 잘 들리시죠? 교수님?
Yeah.
아, 네. 지금 이제 3시 5분이라서 네, 시작하도록 하겠습니다. 네, 정식으로 인사 올리겠습니다. 안녕하세요. 저는 팀 강사라고 하고요. 저희 뮤랭아카데미의 저희 대표 강사입니다. 네, 반갑습니다. 네. 저희 지금 제가 아까 전에 말씀드린 것처럼 저희가 시작하기 전에 저희가 지금 줌으로도 하고 있고 유튜브 라이브로도 지금 동시에 진행을 하고 있거든요. 네, 그 줌에서 이제 유튜브로 송출되는 과정 속에서 한 30초 정도 지연이 있는 부분 참고해 주시면 좋을 것 같고요. 그리고 오늘 저희가 지금 SAT 리딩 무료 특강을 진행할 텐데요. 저희 밴드에다가 그 자료를 업로드해서 이제 이메일로 보내드렸을 거예요. 근데 혹시라도 만약에 지금 유튜브 라이브로 들어오신 분들 중에서 만약에 그 자료를 원하신다면 저희 카톡 채널이 있거든요. 거기로 아니면 이제 그 유튜브 댓글에다가 그 자료를 원하시면 그 이메일 주소를 적어주시면 저희가 보내드리도록 할 테니까 제가 잠깐 인사말 나누는 동안에 그 프린트를 해주시면 될 것 같아요. 네, 그러면 이제 더 그 무료 특강을 더 진행하는 과정 속에서 문제가 없을 테니까 저에 대해서 간단하게 소개를 드릴 텐데요. 저는 이제 뭐 이미 아시는 분들도 계실 수도 있고 보니까 제 학생들도 몇 명 들어온 것 같네요. Hey, Rusey. 그 저는 지금 한 1년 동안에 지금 튜터팀이라는 지금 온라인 학원을 제가 운영을 하고 있었거든요. 근데 이제 정식으로 이번 8월부터는 이제 뮤랭 아카데미로 변하면서 네, 이제 조금 더 뭔가 업그레이드된 네, 이제 체계적인 시스템을 갖춘 네, 이제 온라인 학원을 진행을 할 텐데요. 네. 많은 이런 지금 새로운 출발을 하는데 많은 관심 부탁드리겠습니다. 네. 그래서 오늘부터 이제 그 무료 특강으로 시작해서 앞으로 많은 설명회 그리고 더 많은 무료 특강 그리고 굉장히 이제 학생들에게 중고등학생들에게 유용한 초중고 학생들에게 유용한 수업들을 많이 열 텐데요. 네, 많은 관심 부탁드리고요. 저 같은 경우에는 이제 해외에서 살았던 경험이 되게 많아요. 한 20년 넘게 살아서 고등학교를 제가 비엔나에서 American International School 비엔나에서 제가 졸업을 했어요. IB 디플로마 과정을 이수했고요. 그다음에 학부로는 제가 존스 홉킨스에서 Public Health 전공을 하고 그다음에 이제 제가 이제 로스쿨 이제 아직 졸업은 안 하고 사실 제가 로스쿨을 한 2년 전에 제가 이제 합격을 했는데요. 지금 이제 약 디퍼를 한 상태예요. 그래서 제가 내년에 이제 로스쿨을 이제 입학할 텐데 그때까지는 제가 열심히 이제 학생들을 가르칠 예정입니다. 네. 그리고 이제 그거는 이제 저에 대한 간단한 소개이고 오늘 이제 SAT 리딩 무료 특강을 진행해 주실 이제 최승필 교수님에 대해서 제가 간단하게 이제 프로필 제가 설명을 해드릴 텐데 최승필 교수님 같은 경우에는 이제 인디애나 대학교에서 과학 철학 석사 과정을 거치시고 그다음에 미주리 대학교에서 네 이제 철학 박사 과정을 거치시고 그다음에 이제 초빙 교수로 카이스트에서 분석 철학, 윤리학을 이제 가르치시고 고려대학교에서 과학 철학이랑 논리학을 또 가르치시는 분이시죠. 네, 근데 오늘 같은 경우는 이제 SAT 리딩에 대해서 이제 그 강의를 하실 텐데 SAT 리딩 같은 경우에는 제가 알기로는 교수님 한 20년 정도의 네, 경력이 있으시죠? 네, 가르친 경력이. 그래서 솔직히 제가 생각했을 때는 저보다 더 많은 걸 아시기 때문에 예, 정말 오늘 그 무료특강 내용이 굉장히 좋을 거라고 저는 예상하고 있습니다. 네, 그래서 잠깐 제가 이제 학생들에게 얘기할 텐데 영어로 얘기할게요. 네. Guys, I would like for you to pay attention to I know some of you guys already taken my class, Sunjin, Ruse. I know both of you guys, Myungjun. Hello. I would like to for you to pay attention to Professor Choi as he gives this class. Please take notes, okay? I would like for you guys to take notes. Don't just be sitting down. I really want you guys to be engaging with what Professor Choi has to say. And also, he'll be asking questions from time to time. And it would be very great if you guys could actually participate, okay? So the more participation, I think this session will be very helpful for you guys, okay? So I'm gonna hand it over to him, but I hope I don't see anyone, talking on the chat or doing anything that they shouldn't be doing, okay? In terms of cameras, it's optional, okay? You can have your cameras on or off, but please, when you're answering the questions, if you can turn on your mic and answer, that would be great, instead of doing it on the chat, okay? 네. So I'll be handing it over to him now. 네, 교수님 진행하시면 될 것 같습니다.
Okay, thanks, Sam. Thank you for wonderful introduction. Okay, hello guys. My name is Phil Choi. I go in Korea by the name of Choi Sun Pil, but in the United States, so many students and colleagues used to call me Phil Choi, which has become my kind of real name in some way. Okay, so for the next 90 minutes or so, I'm going to teach you some basic strategy for SAT reading. It has a subtitle, basically, because today I'm just gonna concentrate on novel section. As you know, there are about 5 reading passages typically showing up in SAT, and due to the time limit, and of course, the novel section is usually considered the most demanding section of all. I'm just going to focus on dealing with novel section only today, okay? All right, speaking of novel section, you might wonder why novel section, okay? Well, as usual, you're given 65 minutes to tackle 52 questions. And well, I have asked many students actually, which section traveled you most? And there's some, of course, some, exceptions, but they invariably told me that novel section is it. Well, speaking of which, I started teaching SAT when I was working on my dissertation for my PhD around year 2000. This year is 2021, so it's almost 20 years ago. At the time, the SAT system was quite different from that of the current one. Yeah, of course, like 1600 score system, the system at the time was 1600 score system, but some of the sections are a little different from those in the current system. However, some portion of the reading section actually are amazingly similar to those in the current system. Unfortunately, however, that system was to be changed in the year 2007, and then it's gonna go another change, followed by another change, which is as we see now. So many students here have no idea what SAT was like in around the year 2000 up until 2007. Okay, some students are probably familiar with the old system that changed quite recently, about, was it like 2017? But actually, the SAC system around 2007 has more similarities actually with those in the current system. I'm going to briefly talk about this later. Okay, so even then, when they have 800 score system, yeah, we have a verbal and math totaling 1600. Many students complained about the difficulties in reading section, in particular novel section. Okay, so I think this tendency has been like this for more than 20 years. So I could safely say that novel sections are the most demanding in reading comprehension section. And there's another reason why is it that many students find difficulty in dealing with novel section. Yeah, sometimes novel section comes up first in the reading comprehension section, and that tends to actually discourage some students from the beginning. But actually, the order is not the issue. It's just that whenever they see the novel, they are discouraged. Okay, so can anybody tell me why? Well, some of you might disagree, but why do you think novel section is more demanding or more difficult than the other sections? Can anybody have any opinions, thoughts? Anybody? Why do you think novel sections are most demanding, not the science or social science sections? Or, you get to see history passage typically showing up in SAT. I mean, this complaint is mostly coming from native speakers, Americans and British alike. And many Asian students that I taught, had similar complaints. Can anybody tell me? Any thoughts?
Maybe because in science passages, they're just factual evidence, but then in the novel stories, you actually have to think about you have to read between the lines.
Yeah, basically, you think science paragraphs are mostly about facts, solid facts. Of course, there's some hypothetical issues. Yes, these are facts, whereas novels are dealing with, like imaginary cases, right? You never know how one particular person has in mind. You never know imaginary person. Basically, like, for instance, Harry Potter. Well, that's an imaginary boy. He doesn't really exist. How could you possibly know what are his feelings when you grow up unless you get to read the book, right? So you're dealing with imaginary situations. That's why it's much more demanding and difficult for you to actually predict or guess what it's going to be like. Okay, can anybody tell me why novel sections are more demanding? There's some more reasons than that.
I guess because you need more genuine interpretation, like literary devices, and gotta without the previous knowledge, you gotta connect the dots.
Okay, well, that's a good point. You need some literary devices to interpret the lines in the novel. By which I think what you mean by literary devices are usually metaphors, right? And typically analogies. Sometimes even in a novel, you get to see poems, that are full of allegories, right? And when you interpret allegories, metaphors, you need some pre-knowledge regarding the author. And of course, you need to know some nature of human emotions mostly. Yeah, that's why some young, students or children find it particularly difficult to understand some poetry or some novels because they don't understand some issues that are mostly involving adults or grown-ups. Okay, so yeah, it involves some literary devices, and you might need to understand a little bit about the author, the creator of the story. But there's another reason. Anybody can think of any other reason?
I have a guess.
Yeah.
I think it's because we tend to not read novels as teenagers.
Yeah. So,
So-
teenagers.
I mean, I don't really see people reading novels when they were teenagers or when they are teenagers. So I think that might also
Oh, okay.
be one of the reasons.
So it has something to do with age. Well, to tell you the truth, I think, I still remember reading Treasure Island and Gulliver's Travels when I was 12. Well, yeah, these are the abridged, abridged, like a shortened novel of the real actually work. So actually what I read were actually the shortened version of the real novel. If you get to read Gulliver's Travels, it's much longer and much more difficult. And you'll be quite surprised to see what kind of things are in the book. But, that didn't, prevent me from, reading these books anyway. Well, but I think the reason that many adults tend to read novels than teenagers is that, yeah, well, it involves, more about adulthood, but actually novels lack logical structure. Yeah, you might, just think of any, dramas or movies. If you watch some movies, you notice that the movie is full of feedbacks. Sometimes the story goes backward. So the scene you get to see in the beginning of the movie is actually the ending or the conclusion of the story. And as the movie goes along, you get to see the beginning. Yeah, the most famous example, I don't know if any of you seen the movie, but it's Memento, who actually directed many famous movies like, Batman or Beginning or the Inception, by the way. So anyway, basic novels lack logical structure. So any kind of stories could pop up anywhere, okay? I know that many people are more used to classical novels, but if you have a chance to read modern novels, many modern novels simply do not have any story. Yeah, and the story doesn't proceed as the lapse of time. It doesn't begin with the past and goes along, through the present and future. No, sometimes there's no actually direction of time at all. So lacking logic, many people, sometimes have to read through the whole story to understand the author's intention or the content of the story. So basically, they cannot pick up. Like when I know that many students in Korea usually start when they are slow readers or when you're running out of time, they usually are told to start from the introduction, then skip the middle part, and then just pick up the conclusion. And still, even just skipping the middle section of the passage, you could still manage to get the correct answer. But novels are not like that. So that's why many students find it quite difficult to handle novel sections. Yeah, so that's it. And yeah, I see a reaction or the answer from one of the students. Yeah, she said, okay, let me read. Because novel section has a bit different style and tone from the academic passages, which are what typically you're more familiar with. Yeah, there's some truth to it. Yes, style is quite different. Yes, the novels are different in terms of their styles compared to scientific articles. Why? Well, there are some exceptions, but when you get to read actually scientific articles or essays, you'll find that the authors tend not to use metaphors or allegories, okay? And they tend not to use kind of blurry adjectives. And the authors of scientific articles actually avoid talking about their feelings or emotions because, feelings and emotions of the author have nothing to do with what the author is talking about, which basically involves some truth or facts of the world. So many scientists consider emotions of the author, irrelevant to the very discussion of the scientific theory. That's why you don't get to see their discussion of feelings and emotions. But once you start reading novels, you'll see many sections of the novel filled with words, expressing emotions, regrets, sadness, or delights. So in that sense, novels are different from science articles, okay? So, for those of you who've been reading mostly science articles, I know this is typical of TOEFL or other tests. And not many of you are familiar with all different kinds of novels. So it's no surprise that many students have a hard time interpreting the lines in a novel. So basically, novels lack logical structure and their style, yes, their style is quite different from that of science articles. Yeah, good point. Yeah, so I think we have talked enough about the difference between novels and science articles. You might wonder, are they just different from science articles? Yeah, actually, you get to see, historical essays, political essays too, but they are, in some sense, academic essays. So these historical essays are still very different from novels because historical essays tend to have some logical structure because they follow strictly the hypothesis and evidence that are typical of scientific articles. So history passages have a lot more to do with actually science articles. In this sense, novels are kind of unique, okay? That's why many students find it difficult to handle novel sections. Okay, this is my introduction and why novels are so difficult. And then we move on to the main topic, how to deal with it. Basically, this is basically getting into the core of my method. Now, I have told you that many students usually find it difficult to deal with the novel section, and this is where they lost many points. So basically, for those of you who aim at scoring high, by which I usually mean 700, 750 out of 800, you have to deal with novel section. You have to aim at getting at least 8 questions out of 10, okay? Given that you are prone to make some mistakes in the other sections. So my strategy is not to make more than 2 mistakes in the novel section. In most cases, just 1, okay? Then the other sections are much more easier to handle than novel section. So, you know, if you want to score higher than 700, then you have to know how to deal with novel section. You have to feel comfortable with this section, basically. And what I'm going to tell you today is a strategy to help you at least to gain 80 points right out of it, given the total of 800. So if your current score is like, oh, I recently took the test, I got 600, yeah, then if you get to know this method and you just take another test right on, you could see that your point goes up to 680 right away. Of course, after like, you know, doing 2 or 3 practices, you know, it takes about 65 minutes to finish 1 practice, then maybe like 2 or 3 hours later, you get to see your point going up right away, okay? That's my point. Then, you know, you should be able to make some more effort to raise your score further. And of course, this method only involves novel sections only. In my full course, I'm gonna teach how to use slightly different methods to improve your score in science and social science sections as well. Okay, so let's get going. Now, if you take a look at the first page of the handout is actually the copy of the real SAT practice test, reading comprehension test. And the first section is a novel section, and about 10 questions are attached to 1 long passage. And as you know, there are about 52 questions for which you have 65 minutes to answer. So there are about 52 questions. And usually about 10 questions are attached to a single passage. And there's some double passages, but we're going to talk about this in the main course. So this is not going to be something I'm going to talk about. This is more about the exceptional cases. But anyway, so basically, if you are dealing with 10 questions, my math method says you have 10 minutes to tackle, okay? No more, not more than 10 minutes, okay? Just 10 minutes. And actually, for 10 minutes, you'll end up spending about 4 minutes or even less to tackle about 8 questions out of 10. Then you're left with usually 2 questions that are difficult. So if you assign 1 minute for each of these 2 questions, you'll end up answering 10 questions under 6 minutes. Then you might wonder what I'm gonna do with the rest of the time, like 4 minutes out of 10. You use it later. You squeeze out 4 minutes, and there's gonna be about 5 sections in the practice test. So 4 times 5 means 20 minutes. So you will save up to 20 minutes when you answer the last question, which is typically number 52, okay? Such that you could go back and review tough questions again. This is when you might have to read the whole passage to make sure that what you chose previously is indeed the correct answer, okay? So basically 20 minutes. For those of you who read relatively slowly, that'll be about 16 minutes. 16 minutes will be your reserve time. So you have to use this time to go back and tackle some tough questions to make sure that what you chose is indeed the correct answer. This is how you get the perfect score eventually. If you run out of time before you review some of the questions you answered, then you're not likely to get the perfect score anyway, because usually 2 or 3 questions are even challenging for those who are getting into Harvard or Yale. They say, oh, these 2 questions are really tough, so I had to think about, 4 or 5 minutes to come up with the correct answer. Yeah, these questions are even demanding to those who are trying to get into Harvard easily. So don't worry. I mean, this strategy even tells you what to do when your target is not a perfect score. So don't worry about this. But anyway, this is the basic principle I'm going to use over and over again. Basically, you have to have at least 16 to 20 minutes, okay, when you answer the last question, such that you could go back and review some tough questions. If you are a hardworking student, then it's natural for you to have about 5 tough questions even after you answer number 52. 5 questions. You answer them, but I'm not sure, if this could be D or E or C, you're still a little bit confused or you still lack some confidence, okay? You're not 100% sure which one is the correct answer. So in this case, you go back using your reserve time, 16 to 20 minutes. Well, you have more time than enough to read thoroughly the section. Then you should be able to nail the correct answer. Yeah, this is the basic structure of my method. Now, the first step, well, you're now seeing on the screen what you should do at first. When you open up the test, now you see, there's a novel section here, and you see usually the passage, long passage. Now, the first thing you have to do is not to read the passage no matter what, okay? I'm not saying though that some, extremely smart students, I know that he is very smart and he used to score close to perfect scoring. He always start reading the whole passage. Yes. But I even tell them, because human beings make mistakes, so I even tell them to go back, okay? And they couldn't do it right away overnight. So first thing you have to do when you open the test booklet is mark easy questions. Let me show you how you do this. You could see now the second page of the test, you see questions ranging from 1 through 10. There are only 6 questions you can see now. But anyway, when you see the passage, skip it, because reading questions also matter a lot. So you don't bother to read the passage. You just go down to questions. And here's the method. Just read questions only, very briefly. Okay, say if you see number 1, which choice best summarizes the passage? Oh, summarize. Yeah, for you to summarize something, you usually have to read the whole thing, right? If you skip something, you'll be uncomfortable because you never know something unusual is there. So whenever you see best summarize, the best purpose, then that means that, somehow I need to read the whole thing eventually. So skip it. Now, some of you might want to pick up some symbols. Now you can see that I chose a symbol triangle in red. That's for me, but you might choose to use like a square or star sign. Yeah, it is typical, a favorite choice among Korean students. You could just use a star sign. But anyway, note that I marked out easy ones first. Now, number 1 is not easy because it says best summarizes, which seems to require me to read the whole thing. So skip it. See the number 2, the main purpose, wait, not of the whole passage, of the opening sentence of the passage is 2. Opening sentence. But anyway, opening sentence could be quite long. And whenever you get to see the expression main purpose, that means you might end up reading the whole thing. That's why I consider number 2 a tough question. But this could be easy, but don't worry about it, okay? You never have a problem when you consider something difficult, which turned out to be easy one later. No problem. So you are risk-free here. So just skip it. If you go down to number 3, during the course of the first paragraph, the narrator's focus shifts from, wow, it says first paragraph. Yeah, you can see I marked out it as an easy question. You see a red triangle. Why? If you take a look at the question now, okay, let me show you this. Oh, okay. Rather. Yeah, if you can see, basically the first paragraph, now the whole thing is called the passage. The paragraph, if you want to know what is the first paragraph, it starts with the line 1, begins with no man, and ends in line 33. Like out of the slimy walls of a well, that's where the first paragraph ends. Whoa, 33 lines? Well, for those who are like slow readers, this 33 lines could be quite a challenge. So that's why I'm going to talk about it later, but still I marked number 3 as an easy question. That's why you see a triangle marked on number 3. But if you take a look at number 4, okay, let me go back to number 4 here. Does it move? Let me just. Number 4. Okay, number 4. It reads, the references to shade, quote unquote, and darkness, quote unquote, at the end of the first paragraph mainly have which effect? Now, if you take a look at it, it mentions a particular words, shade and darkness. In this case, you're most likely to nail the correct answer just by locating these 2 words in the passage. You never have to read more than usually 3 lines. Okay, so by just reading 3 lines, you could just nail the correct answer. So you don't even have to read the whole passage. That's why it is an easy question. So basically, whenever the question mentions particular words, they are usually indicated by quotation marks, quote unquote. Then you could 100% be confident that, these are easy questions, okay? You never have to read more than 3 lines to nail it. Okay, so I marked it easy. Let's go to number 5. It reads, the passage indicates that Edward Crimsworth's behavior was mainly caused by his what? Now, if you wonder why I marked it as an easy question, okay, can anybody here listening to my lecture tell me why I marked number 5 as an easy question? Can anybody tell me?
Is it because the you can read the passage to get the answer.
Yeah, but which part of the passage? Yeah, do you have to read the whole passage? Then
No.
it defies my method. Yes. So which one? How do you know that number 5 is an easy question, such that you never have to read the whole passage, not even half, not even 1/10? How do you know?
It says that it's talking about Edward Crimsworth's behavior.
Yes, yes. Yeah, you almost nailed it. Yes. Edward Crimsworth is, what is this? We call somebody's name a proper noun. Okay. Whenever the question includes or includes proper noun, a specific name of time, person, place, then usually in a novel, you don't see proper noun, scattered everywhere around. No, authors are not that stupid. They usually do not want to use the same word, same name over and over again. They kind of want to avoid using the same word. So they also economize the usage of words. So if you actually take a look at the passage, you will find actually that the proper name, Edward Crimsworth, is not used many times, at most twice or 3 times. Yeah. So basically, I'm just going to tell you what to do with this. It's pretty simple. If you take a look at the passage, then just look at the lines to find the very word Edward Crimsworth. Find the first line, okay, where you get to see the name mentioned, literally, okay? Yeah, literally. Now, here's another tip. Now, you notice that you're tackling number 5, right? And number 3 is ahead, number 4 is ahead of number 5, number 3 is ahead of number 4. Then, which means that when you tackle number 3 and it mentions first paragraph, so basically it means that you might have to read first paragraph to answer question number 3. Then when you nail the correct answer for number 4, then you could easily guess that whatever I have to read comes after the ending of first paragraph. So some smart students actually start reading from the beginning of the second paragraph, which is in line 34. Antipathy is the only word. And then you go down one line below, express the feeling Edward Crimsworth had for me. This is where the very name Edward Crimsworth is first mentioned. Voila, that's the mark. You start reading from that word and that line, and you go down a bit. Yeah, so basically, all you have to do is to find the very word proper noun, Edward Crimsworth. Where is it? And if you have read already number 3, it says during the course of the first paragraph, so I gotta read first paragraph to answer number 3, right? Then if I'm tackling number 5, you never have to read first paragraph. Whatever it is, the clue must be found after the ending of the first paragraph. The funny thing is, actually, the order in which you answer these questions is stunningly, similar to the order you read the passage. So once you answer number 2, then, and see you read, say, line 15 and 16, when you read and answer number 3, you never have to read any lines before line 14 and 15, actually. You never have to read first line or second line. No. So basically, for you to find the clue, quick clue for number 5, where is Edward Crimsworth? Most likely, after the ending of the first paragraph. And there is, like, the ending of the paragraph, the first paragraph is line 33. And the next paragraph starts at line 34. So you start reading from there, and only one line below, you find the word Edward Crimsworth. That's where you start reading. Okay, and usually you don't have to read a lot. However, I'll get to that briefly. So basically, whenever you see a particular name, pronoun, then you mark it out as an easy question because you never have to read the whole passage. Mostly, maybe 10 lines at most, okay? So, okay, let's mark it. Okay, easy one. What about number 6? The passage indicates that when the narrator began working for Edward Crimsworth, he viewed Crimsworth as. Now, for some students, this might be a tough question. Okay, but it's not. The reason is it specifically mentions the narrator began working for Crimsworth, he viewed. So when means it refers to a particular time frame. Okay, begin working means when he start working for Mr. Crimsworth. So it has a definite time indicator. The problem is where to find it. Okay, it's actually much easier than you think. And you know, once you nail down number 5, then whatever you have to read after the line you read for you to nail number 5. Okay, so well, this is about getting the correct answer. Now we're just talking about how to know which one is easy, which one's difficult. Okay, so I'll briefly talk about how to choose the correct answer. Okay, so I'll get back to that later. Just mark it out as easy question now. But anyway, basically, when the question includes some words referring to time, specific word, or specific place, that has to be an easy question. Now, if you take a look at number 7, it reads, which choice provides the best evidence for the answer? Well, basically, it asks you how you got the correct answer for number 6. Well, given that you did it correctly, you never have to read again to answer number 7. So number 7 is actually attached to number 6. So it doesn't even take 10 seconds to get the correct answer for number 7 anyway. So easy answer. So whenever the question says, which choice provides the best evidence? Easy question. So let's get down to number 8. At the end of second paragraph. Yes, it starts with a specific place, the end of the second paragraph, which means at best, you just have to read the second paragraph only, but it goes further. It says at the end of the second paragraph, which means you never have to read anything else. You just get down to the end of the second paragraph, and that's all you have to read. That's why, and it really means that you never have to read anywhere else to get the correct answer for number 8. That's why it's an easy question. So I marked it out as easy one. Number 9, the passage indicates that after a long day of work, the narrator sometimes found his living quarters to be. Now, you notice that number 9 comes after number 8, and number 8 indicates the end of the second paragraph. Now, if you take a look at the end of the second paragraph, where it is, let's see, that'll be actually line 56. Yeah, that's the end of the second paragraph. Okay, so basically, for you to answer number 8, you have to read the end of second paragraph. That is line 56. So basically, number 9 comes after number 8, right? Then for you to answer 9, you have to read after the ending of the second paragraph, which is, you have to read from line 56. Okay, then you see a short paragraph that's about line 20 lines, though, but don't worry, you never have to read the whole thing. Okay, however, now if you take a look at number 9 again, it says the passage indicates that after a long day of work, now then the narrator sometimes found his living quarters to be. So as you start reading from line 56, you go down and you find whatever is the synonym for a long day, or narrator sometimes found his living quarters. Okay, let me ask you a question here. Does anybody tell me what living quarter is? What is a living quarter?
Like a place you stay.
Yes, yeah, his residence, his lodging, his house. So basically, this is the tacky part, but once you get used to it, you just nail the correct answer right away. As you read from line 56, and you don't have to go very far. When you find a word that means similar to his living quarter, that's where you find the clue. Okay, so if you come down from line 56, you go down, okay? Then actually you see in line, let's see. Oh yeah, line 70. As I approached my lodgings, whoops, lodgings means my place, yeah, my house, my residence, which is a synonym for living quarters. So that's where you pay attention to find a clue. Okay, yeah. Now you read. Okay, that's where the clues are. I walked fast, for it was a cold, frosty night in January. As I approached my lodgings, I turned from a general view of my affairs to the particular speculation as to whether my fire would be out. And then he says, looking towards the window of my sitting room, I saw no cheering red gleam. And that's where the passage ends. Now, let's just stop. So far, actually, I forgot to mention something. If you take a look at, okay, marking, yeah, here. If you take a look at the test sheet carefully, you can see that I marked or I circled some words, okay? Not actually lines and sentences or phrases, okay? I usually call them, there's a name for it, okay? Strong adjectives, 형용사, okay? That are usually used to express human emotions. Now, this is very crucial because novels are mostly about human emotions, emotions of the narrator, the author, or the author's friends, lovers, family, okay? Most novels are dealing with human emotions. So when you start reading a novel, you mark out all the adjectives, but not all the adjectives. Usually the adjectives that are used to express human emotions, such as sad, happy, excited, delighted, depressed, yeah, exhausted, frustrated, yeah. Or, I really got mad because he treated me like a jerk, so angry, happy. So if you take a look at the passage, I underline words such as irksome, dry, tedious. Yeah, I find my work tedious. It's a human emotion as well. I think it's boring. I feel bored. So dry, tedious, nuisance. Nuisance means the thing or person that causes you inconvenience, something that bothers you. Nuisance. That's a strong word, usually physically and emotionally. And then I underline in line 19, distress, joyless. Okay, and then antipathy in line 34. Antipathy means hatred, actually. Very strong word. Whenever you find very strong words, you have to circle them or underline them, because these are very strong indicators in novels. You could never overlook them. These are basically road signs telling you this is the right, correct road. So, I know many students just underline or, circle like 20 or 30 of them. Then you'll get confused, of course, when you go back and reread the passage to get some clues. You're confused. So it's much better than not marking anything at all, but I recommend making usually about, 20 marks. And that's usually good enough for you to cover one long passage. So here I marked out envy, annoy, fear, hate, malignity, malice. Well, malice and malignity are mostly synonyms. So as you start, it doesn't matter. You do not mark these words when you start reading the whole passage. When you start reading a portion of the passage to tackle easy questions. So you might get an answer to number 4 very easily, but when you actually read even a single line for number 4, you mark out adjectives that are expressed human emotions, because that saves quite a bit of time. So you mark out basically adjectives. I call them strong adjectives. Yeah, as you can see, distress, hatred, irritate, hate, malignity. These are strong words. And these will give you very convenient and, very clear clues in the end. So you mark out strong adjectives from the beginning. And when you get down to, say, okay, oh, sorry. Yeah, basically, number 6 or number 7, okay, here. Yeah, I was talking about number 6, right? Yeah, how do you know? Now, if you mark out all the words, and of course, if you answer number 5, well, once you start answering easy questions, you can answer them in order from lower number to higher number. Yes. So after you answer number 5, okay, you could safely move on to number 6, and whatever you read to answer number 5, you could start reading next. Whatever you haven't read so far. So that is probably, I think, from, as I said, number 9, line 56. And if you start reading, and of course, as you go on, you underline or circle strong adjectives. Okay, then at the end of it, you have to underline no cheering red. Now, red is not particularly, used to express human emotions. But anyway, cheering is, okay, but be careful. It says no cheering. Now, when you say I have no cheering situation. I face no cheering. Now, no cheering means cheering is exhilarating, delightful, happy, maybe. Anyway, something good, right? No cheering, not happy. Now, this is where you have to be careful. But anyway, let me get back to number 6. Now, so you get down to, it's okay if you get down to the end of the passage, line 75. But anyway, as you go down, okay, you will find a single word, okay, that indicates a time. Because number 6 reads, the passage indicates that when the narrator began working for Edward Crimsworth, basically, when he started working for Crimsworth, then where could that word be? You can find it in line 61. It reads, I had long ceased to regard Mr. Crimsworth as my brother. Long ceased to. I have long stopped regarding. Long has been long time. Okay, yeah. That means probably when you start working for Mr. Crimsworth. But that's not the only clue. Maybe that's not good enough. So you need maybe, this is not enough, not clear enough, blurry. Then you read more. Look, I long ceased to regard. Go back to number 6 and reread it. The passage indicates that when the narrator began to working for Mr. Edward Crimsworth, he viewed Crimsworth as, in other words, you could replace view as, he regarded Crimsworth as a. Now, let me go back to the sentence that I read previously. I had long ceased to regard Mr. Crimsworth as my brother. This is the actually hint sentence line. Why? Regard is the synonym for view. And when means I had long. It's a time. It indicates long, indicates time. Yeah. When he started working for Crimsworth, it's been a long time since I regarded him as my brother. So you have 2 clues here. And when you regard somebody as your brother, what does that mean? Let's take a look at choices here. A, harmless rival. B, sympathetic ally. C, perceptive judge. D, demanding mentor. Okay. Yeah. If you look somebody as a bro, yeah, many African Americans use bro, yeah, in the typical Hollywood movies. When somebody means, this is my bro, what does that mean to you? It's a common sense. Yeah. When you say you are his bro, you could be his friend, right? Yeah, friend. You're in this boat together, okay? You're my friend. So A, harmless rival? For A to be an answer, you need more clues, okay? And take a look at number B, sympathetic ally or ally, But anyway, sympathetic, basically, you share the same emotions. That's what a typical brother is for. So basically, B is the correct answer. Anyway, for you to make sure that A is not the correct answer, you don't need anything, because for you to answer number basically 4 and 5, you had to read some lines from the passage, and you have known that Miss Crimsworth is the narrator's enemy. Okay, enemy. So it cannot be a rival, basically. they started out as friends and then it got worse, much worse. So B is better answer than A. But anyway, let's move on to number 7. Okay, which choice provides the best evidence? Now, just take a look, which line did I read to get this answer? It is line 61 and 62. Do I have? Yes, D is here. So D is actually the correct answer. So you just can't get the right answer right away, even without reading. So number 7 has been taken care of. Why is it that number 8, question number 8 is an easy question? Because it says at the end of the second paragraph. Okay, yeah. So you only need to read the end of the second paragraph, at most maybe a line or 2. Okay, so let's just take it. Okay, easy answer. No, let me get back to it, how to nail the correct answer easily. Then we move on to number 9. Why is it an easy question? Because it says the passage indicates that after a long day of, oh, I already did this, didn't I? But anyway, the narrator sometimes found his living quarters to be. Now, living quarters are his lodgings. Now, I read till the end of this passage already, and I mentioned the word no cheering. Now, be careful. Just because it's like this, and here's a good tip, and you should apply this to many other questions. Just because I'm not happy doesn't mean that automatically, oh, if you're not happy, then you must be very sad. If somebody says, I'm not happy, does that automatically mean that the person is sad? What do you think? If somebody said, I'm not exhausted, does that mean that automatically if somebody says, he's not exhausted, does that mean that he's full of energy? No. Just because someone says, I'm not happy, doesn't mean that automatically he must be sad. Because human emotions have degrees. Just because he says he's not happy doesn't mean that he's very angry or he's very sad. I could feel nothing. I'm just quiet. I don't feel anything. Okay, I'm okay. I don't feel sad. I don't feel angry. I don't feel happy, but I'm just in between. This kind of thinking you have to adapt to read literary passages. So basically, just because someone says, in this case, I saw no cheering, doesn't mean that, or no cheering means he couldn't see anything that could make him happy or delightful. Does that automatically mean he's depressed, extremely sad? No. What about red gleam? Yeah, gleam means light. Yeah, you don't see any red light. I'm going to talk about this later, but whenever you see red, it could mean so many things. But just think about it. We put many reddish things on Christmas trees. Yeah, red could mean danger, risk, but red could mean, that's why probably many Chinese like the color red. Red could mean happiness, yeah, comfort, or passion. Now, the author says at the end of the passage, I saw no cheering red gleam. Nobody is cheering me up at my lodging when I come back home after work. That means, now, for you to nail number 9, this is not about whether you read the whole passage. Now, number 9 is specifically about your knowledge of vocabulary, actually. So if you happen to suffer from lack of vocabulary, you might end up missing number 9. Okay, so this is a little bit special. But anyway, number 9 is more about your knowledge of vocabulary. So you need to see what each of these 4 words mean. Treacherous. Treacherous means somebody betrays you. So you cannot trust, basically distrustful, deceptive, basically. B means dreary, means boring, dull. C means predictable. Predictable, you could foresee the future. Intolerable means you cannot bear it, unbearable. So when after the work, when you go home, you don't see any cheering red light. Nobody's waiting for you, cheering you up. Now, treacherous is more about believing or betraying. Okay? Basically, no one is waiting for you to cheer you up. Doesn't mean that somebody is trying to deceive you or somebody's not trying to deceive you. So basically, treacherous has nothing to do with, I think, cheering. B means, dreary means boring or dull. Think about it. When you had a long day, you go home, then you're exhausted, okay, you're tired. So when you go home, when you have family, you expect someone, yeah, these days, it may not be someone in your family. It could be your dog or cat, okay? When you open up the door, it could be your cat cheering you up by saying, meow. That's what it means. After the long day, when he comes home, nobody is waiting for him to cheer him up, okay? Why? And he repeats this kind of circle every day. So what kind of images do you have from this story? Yeah, nobody is there to cheer you up. Look, if this is actually, there's some logic behind this actually, but usually if the author tried to really say that the narrator, the main character, actually became very sad, depressed, then he could have used a very strong word somewhere in the passage. Yes. Yeah, but actually, this question is connected to actually number 4. Yeah, number 4, when he talks about, actually, okay, let's go back to number 4 briefly. Yeah, here, shade and darkness. Okay, shade and darkness. Yeah, yeah. Which means, basically, the author is facing a very dull life. Yeah, it's the same. Nobody's cheering. If I go home, it's just the same. Nothing gets worse, but nothing got better. You know, it's just the same. Okay, so nothing to cheer up, but nothing in particular to be desperate or very sad. So actually, B, dreary is the answer. Okay, so for some people, number 9 could be tough, mainly because they don't understand the true meaning, connotations of these adjectives that are typically used to express human emotions. But, you know, the good news is you'll get used to it pretty quickly once you, get the method, and then you don't have to memorize hundreds of things. Basically, this has a pattern. So let me say that number 9 has more to do with your knowledge of vocabulary, nothing to do with reading actually. So if you're unlucky, oh my God, I kind of memorized treacherous, but I forgot it. I forgot what dreary means, then you're probably out of luck. You have to just, but you're pretty sure that C is not the correct answer, okay? I saw some people actually choosing D though. So this is something I'm going to talk about in detail during my regular lecture, actually, how to deal with some unusual questions, even though it's an easy question because you never have to read the whole passage. This is more to do with how to read novels, actually. Yeah. So for those of you who have read many novels, understand this quite easily, because narrators, authors tend to be very, very careful choosing adjectives to express the emotions of the main character. That's why. So they never exaggerate. Novelists do not. They're very delicate, actually. They, made fine line between sadness, depression, delight, excitement. Okay, so details and small differences matter a lot in novels. So I think dreary is closest, because treacherous means somebody's trying to deceive you. Got it? Yeah. When you go home after a long day's work, nobody's waiting for you. Well, is somebody trying to deceive you? No. You're boring. Okay. You're bored with your life. Yeah. You want to get out of this. Okay. So whatever that expresses, this situation is dreary. Of course, for you to read, basically, where did you get the answer here? Oh, that's the last line. Okay. So you could automatically get the correct answer for question 10. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna pause a little while, because I went through from number 4 to number 10. Okay. And then I left out intentionally number 3. There's a reason, because it happens to be that for you to get the correct answer for number 3, you might end up reading the most. Most by which I mean, if you have read so far on average 10 lines to answer each question, then for you to answer number 3, you might end up reading more than before. Okay, any other questions so far? Yeah, I'm just telling you how to do this, but not only am I telling you how to mark it as an easy one, but also helping you to come up with the correct answer at the same time. So it sounds a little bit complicated, but it's not. Once you go through how to determine which one is easy and difficult, and then how to actually get the correct answer, these are a little bit different, then you could see easily how this method works. Okay. So basically, you need to just mark out the easy ones first, then tackle each question. Okay. That's the start. Okay, if no questions, then let me go back to number 3. Yeah, question number 3 is a little bit special, but I marked it as an easy question. Why? Because it reads, during the course of the first paragraph is the beginning of the whole passage, right? The narrator's focus shifts from, shifts. Shifts means change, right? So there has to be some word meaning some changes in the first paragraph. Okay. And it particularly mentions the first paragraph, which means you just have to read the whole first paragraph, which is starting from line 1 all the way down to line 33. So does that mean that actually I have to read 33 lines to answer number 3? No. in most cases, you never have to read the whole paragraph. In most cases, you nail the correct answer even before you get down to line 10. Okay, so some students actually answer number 3 the last, and then they move on to number 1 and 2, more difficult questions. So, okay, so let's get down to the first paragraph. So you just read, okay, first paragraph, first line, it says, no man likes to acknowledge that he has made a mistake in the choice of his profession, and every man worthy of the name will row long against the wind and tide before he allows himself to cry out. I just finished reading the first sentence. Now, fortunately, this is all you have to read to come up with the correct answer. Why? Here's why. Of course, the reason is explained here in this PowerPoint. Yeah. Okay. Let me go there first. Oops. 3. Okay, anyway, yeah, I can go. Oh, here. Yeah, question 3. Now, this applies to not just novel sections. This particularly applies to science sections as well. I just don't mention it here in my PowerPoint, but whenever any sentence begins with no, every, all, without exception, absolutely, you have to circle this word loudly. It's so obvious. It's like these words are crying out for, hey, I'm the answer. Yes. Don't ever think that SAT makers are really tacky and, very nasty guys. In fact, actually, I don't know if any of you have ever read ETS. Has any of you read about ETS, the institution that has been making SAT questions for more than, I don't know, 30 years, 40 years? Has anybody ever read about ETS? No, it's okay. I mean, but I was curious. Yeah, when I found out that, oh, there's an institution called the ETS, and these guys are making questions for SAT for many, many years. So I did some research. That's even before the Google came out. I did some research on ETS before year 2000. Yes, that's barely like the internet was just spreading. So there's will be probably the Google just launched, I don't know. So I did some research to find out that actually ETS has about 300 researchers, and all of them got PhDs in English or philosophy or law. Yes. So they're all highly educated. Now, you might wonder, heck, I mean, they're making these questions, and why do they have to hire so many? There's a reason. They're not just there to make questions. They need to make sure that the level, difficulty level of the questions that come out each year, each time, is comparable or even or persistent. If specific question SAT is so difficult and another question SAT is so easy, then we have an issue. Like, those who took the easy one will be, well, much happier, aren't they? They might think, yeah, we're good. We just took a very easy test. But those who unfortunately took the very tough test will complain. So they also have to consider statistical consistency. So they also have many statisticians to make sure that the difficulty level, of course, in relation to the number of students taking the exam, the number goes up and down. So when many more students are taking the test should be more difficult than usual, right? So statisticians are also working out to kind of, make sure that the level doesn't go up, too high or too low. So these guys are actually making questions considering all the factors. We just don't know what they are. But anyway, let's go back to the first line. Now it says, no man likes. Now, why you wonder, okay, these smart guys are making these questions. What about it? Oh, it's more to do with their attitudes. You might think that SAT questions are about, just differentiating between smart students and not so smart students. No. Many questions are there to make sure that, hey, these questions show up all the time. So if you want to nail them out, be sure to study this before you advance to colleges or universities. You have to study this. You should know this. So that's why similar questions show up over and over and over again. Not because they don't want to make new questions, but because you guys need to know this before you advance to college. And this is one of them. Whenever there is a sentence beginning with no, all, every, no exception, and similar words, this means whoever is making this is making a very strong claim. We call sentences or claims with all, every, no exception, generalizations. Yeah, we call them generalizations. So basically, these ETS guys are telling us that, hey, before you go to college, make sure that whenever you see sentences beginning with no, all, every, you should know that these are generalizations. Okay, let me ask you a question. What could be the typical example of generalization? Where do you find it? Do you actually happen to find this generalization in history section? Do you ever find like everybody does this in human history? Probably very rare. Whatever, social science, like some sociologist wrote an article and the passage contains everybody does this. All the people do this. Probably not. Okay, why? Actually, in real life, you don't actually face generalizations very often. That's why, because when somebody says everybody does this, no, not everybody, he doesn't do that. You could immediately come up with exceptions. Then what could be the candidate for generalizations? For some of you who thought science, then you're very good, but at the same time, you are wrong. Yeah. You're very good. Because in the past, if you take a look at the history of science, till the late 19th century, most scientists believe that scientific laws are generalizations. The typical example is Newtonian mechanics. Newton thought that actually his gravitational law applies to everywhere, such that it is universal law. Universal means general. Okay, so in the past, many scientific laws are generalizations, but nowadays, people think otherwise. Yeah, strictly speaking, even Einstein's general relativity is not a generalization. Yeah. Anyway, let me talk about this briefly later. So anyway, whenever you face questions, sentences with no, all, every exception, then be careful, pay attention. Okay, so you should mark out no, and you go down. Oh, in the second line, you see every. Okay, and when you go down to line 4, suddenly you see that's the quotation begins, quote, I am baffled. Now, baffled is what? Confused, frustrated. It's a typical adjective. Of course, it's a verb, but it becomes an adjective, okay? It expresses human emotions. Yes, when somebody says, I'm baffled, he's expressing a strong emotional situation. So you should circle this too. Now, some smart students already spot a shift. In the first line, the narrator begins with no man likes, which is similar to every. Okay, yeah, every, no, same generalization. It's like everyone likes or no man likes. And then suddenly in the line 4, I am baffled. I is usually refers to a particular person. So you already notice a shift from generalization to a particular case. That's a really big shift. You just don't notice this, but whenever you read scientific articles, and if the author used no or all, and then suddenly I or some or few, then it means a big shift, big focal shift. So when you go down to the 4th line, you already notice a big shift from every or no to one particular I am. Just like everybody else, I am also confused. So it basically answers what? Number 3. Because if you take a look at C, it starts with generalization about job satisfaction. Yeah, this is about narrator's job to the specifics of his own situation. Where does own? I am. Narrator, I am baffled. His own situation. Now I am facing a baffling situation. That's why you make sure to circle adjectives, strong emotional adjectives. Then it answers many quick, easy questions very quickly. So that answers number 3. So yeah, number 3 is a bit more time consuming, but when you tackle easy questions, make sure that you read the question thoroughly and answers for the candidate, correct answer for the candidate, A, B, C, D. Okay, yeah, because if you are actually picking up the correct answer, you should be able to see a synonym that is happening or occurring in the passage or paragraph. Yeah, clue is see generalization in this paragraph. The first word, no man, in the second line, every no, taking place in the very line and the second line of the entire passage. So these are very strong clues. And then in the first line, you see I, particular case. So, and Baffled means I am disappointed with the decision I made. This is dissatisfaction. So you have two major clues, okay, to the words taking place in choice C. So once you circle these words, you cannot possibly miss the correct answer here. So, okay, 3 has been taken care of. Then we are left with number 1 and 2. And the funny thing is, you might think that, oh, so finally, the question says which choice best summarizes the passage. So you might think that, okay, finally, I'm going to read the whole passage. Do you? Now, so far, for you to answer question 3 through 10, you have already read partially though, but it's okay, don't worry. If you once you answered from 3 to 10, then actually you could leave that out. I think at least you have read, almost around like line 30 or 31 through the end of the passage, roughly. But don't worry, without reading the whole thing, you chose the correct answer for each question, right? Then the only passage you didn't read at all is the first one, beginning with line 1 all the way down to 33. But I know that for you to answer number 3 and 4, you have read certain portions of it. So you could take your time, relax a bit, because you know that for you to answer number 1, you probably end up reading about 10 to 20 lines at most. Okay. Anyway, now, in some sense, number 3 is connected to number 1. Why? I told you that whenever the sentence begins with no, every, or, they cry out for questions, because these are very strong claims, and there is also a name for it. We call sentences beginning with every, all, no, no exceptions, sweeping claims. Yeah, another name of generalization. Now, whenever the author uses or makes sweeping claims, the author is making an emphasis. He is stressing his ideas. So that means that usually that's where the author is expressing his main ideas or his important feelings. So far you read, oh, it begins with no, then I am baffled, which means I'm no exception. I also regret about my choices. About what? His job. Okay. And then, basically for you to answer, 4, 5, and 6, you notice that the relationship between the narrator and the Crimsworth is hatred, antipathy. Okay. And actually, the narrator also discusses what is the reason behind this antipathy. That's the part of the question, actually. Number 5, indicates that Edward Crimsworth's behavior was mainly caused by. Now, if you marked all the strong adjectives, you shouldn't pass in line 44. Had I been in anything inferior to him, he would not have hated me so thoroughly. Now you get to read a very strong claim. Yeah. He really thoroughly hated me. That's the result. Then the reason is stated. Had I been in anything inferior, not anything. So if I had been superior to, if in fact I was superior to him, So he began to hate me. Yeah, he felt, in other words, he felt inferior to me, right? That actually answered number 5. Jealousy of the narrator's apparent superiority. Yes. So basically, for you to answer number 5, you have to read line from 32 or 33 all the way down to like probably line 45. Okay, so leave it out. Then, yeah, while you answer this question, you remember, in this section, the narrator is talking about the relationship. Basically, they hate each other. Why? Because the master hates the narrator. Now, what is about? The relation of antipathy and its cause or reason. And begins with what? No man, and I'm one of them, I'm frustrated, I hate my job. So in the beginning, the narrator expresses his strong emotions, hatred, dissatisfaction toward his job. So you don't have to read more. Whenever the author talks about the feeling of happiness or hatred, this is strong enough. So that should be the major portion of the story. Then what is that? A character describes his dislike, his hatred for his new job and considers the reason why. Do you know the reason why? Because his master feels inferior to him. That is related to number 5. So while you read number 5 to nail down the correct answer, you notice, his master really hates him because he feels inferior to his employee, the narrator. And when he discusses a strong feeling of antipathy, that's a very strong point. So A should be the right answer. Yeah. Of course, if you get down to B, C, and D, you notice that you don't have any clues like optimism. You cannot find any clues from here, any optimism. Yeah. C, a young man regrets privately, a choice that he defends publicly. If you read the passage roughly, you never find any synonym for publicly. B, two characters employed in the same office become increasingly competitive. Not just competitive, more than that. Basically, the employer hates the employee. Not just competitive, it's the feeling of antipathy and hatred. Okay, and one of them is not employed, the other is an employer. Okay, so basically, you never have to read the whole passage to get the correct answer for number 1. And then you move down to number 2. The main purpose, so you might have to read the whole passage. No. I already mentioned the very first sentence begins with no. And in the first line, he begins to say, I am baffled. And the narrator explains why. Yeah, the Mr. Crimsworth hired him, and then because of his inferiority, he started annoying the narrator from the beginning, and it only gets worse, such that the narrator gets exhausted. He gets bored when he gets home every day after work. That's the story. So, but anyway, number 2, if you read number 2, it says, purpose of the opening sentence of the passage. Opening sentence means just the first sentence. And I read it already, right? No man likes to acknowledge that, blah, blah, blah. will row along against the wind and tide before he allowed himself to cry out, I am baffled. So generalization, shift from generalization to particulars, including I, the narrator. Why would someone do that? It's simple. Many authors and scientists they usually say, oh, this is the general trend and I'm one of them. So don't blame me. Just like many others, I make this mistake. Then readers could understand, yeah, he made this mistake. He feels miserable, but everybody could make the same mistake. So readers can sympathize with the narrator. So basically, this is the basic structure of many novels. When people say, when the narrator said, everybody does this, no one does this, followed by I, by the way, feel this way, I feel awful, I feel delighted, then usually he's trying to persuade you by providing a context. Yes. So, yeah, you should be, reader, you should be able to understand me because I'm in the situation and this situation could happen to everybody because this happens as a result of the mistakes I make, and these mistakes can be made by everyone else. Why? Such that readers can easily understand the narrator's situation, which is B, provide context useful in understanding the narrator's emotional state. Here, emotional state is a clue word. Why? If you circle all the strong adjectives, you know how the narrator feels. He got annoyed, irritated, baffled, confused, right? You get to see many adjectives that express emotions of a person here. So you cannot avoid this. When the author uses adjectives, strong adjectives, basically the narrator is expressing his emotional state. And almost the second half of the entire passage is about narrator emotional state. But the passage begins with no man, every people, and I, which means it's a context. You know, everybody makes a mistake and I am one of them. So I'm no different from many people. Yes. Yeah, I just make the mistake everybody else could have made. Why? Such that many people could sympathize with the situation the narrator is going through. Now, the reason that I chose this novel is that this novel, if there is a structure, there is. It's not obvious, however, but follows the typical narrative structure found among so many novels. You can do the same. You could say, oh, everybody does this. Many people do this, and I did the same thing. So when you say that, you're actually telling people that, yeah, I'm not different from you, so you could sympathize with me. You know, I'm just in the same situations as you guys are now. I'm no different from you. So if the readers or audience find out that the guy in the podium or the guy speaking is not that different from the audience, they could feel the pain or joy of the speaker. Yes, that's the basic. We call this rhetoric, actually, a method many authors, writers typically use to persuade their audience. It's a basic method. So this novel follows the typical method, the narrative structure, to convince people. Yeah, in a sense, like emotional sympathy is what the narrator aims to achieve here. Okay, nothing more. Okay, so basically, I have tackled all 10 questions. And I don't think you have to read the whole passage to get correct questions for all of them, okay? You could skip some of it. However, when you have time, you should, and you come back because you're not sure 100%, then you could start reading the whole passage. Yeah, not all still, like for you to answer number 1 and 2, you just have to read half of the passage actually, no more than that. And usually you will find the correct answer. So basically you get all the, correct questions under 10 minutes. Yeah, then, and this happens to be the most challenging section anyway. So you should be able to eke out or squeeze more time from science section and social science section. So don't worry about it if you manage to tackle this section and barely, when you finally, put down all the correct answers for novel section, you no more have any free time left. That's fine, because you should be able to squeeze more time from other sections still. Okay, so this is the general outline of my method. Yeah, the basic strategy is you answer at least 8 questions out of 10 under 4 minutes, even though the 10 minutes is assigned to this section. Okay, yeah. So when you actually go through all the questions, you have spent barely 52 minutes. So at least you still have about 13 minutes left. Furthermore, you could squeeze out at least 4 minutes, or in some cases 5 minutes from novel section added to that, such that you could come back here and tackle difficult questions once more. Then this time you might want to read the whole passage. Okay, so such that you could correct your original answer afterwards. Okay, this wraps up my method for now. Alrighty, thank you for listening. Okay, so we have about maybe 5 to 10 minutes for questions. Yeah, I kind of hurried up a little bit, but this is my first day here. So, all right, any questions? Is it clear? Is everybody with me?
Are you able to apply these like strategies in different sections, or is it like just for these novels?
No. The basic line is basically you pick out easy questions, you answer them first without reading the entire passage. In this sense, you could apply this method to other sections. Actually, if you apply this method to science section, social science section, you get to run into like articles about sociology, geography, geology, like those volcanoes, typical, easiest one usually, or economics. I find that many students these days having a hard time tackling with, essays about economics. They usually present you with 2 short passages. You're going to have to compare them, right? You could apply this method to economics too, because they follow the basic structure. But they're a little bit different. That's why I'm going to go through the 10-week session. If this is like universal method such that you could just apply this to everything without any adjustment whatsoever, then, well, all you have to do is just take this 2-hour session and that's it. Okay, maybe you need to make some practices after this, but if you try to apply this method to the other sections, I think that 80% of my method is the same. This also applies to social science, and also applies to history section as well. The difference is the kind of adjectives you will circle will be a little bit different, but the time constraint remains the same. So basically, you're facing about 10 questions. You mark out easy questions first without reading the whole passage, okay? Then, of course, actually in science and social science sections, you could much more easily identify easy questions because they usually begin to line 12 indicates that from line to 12, the author, claims it. So the many questions under the science or social science section tend to be much more clear and specific compared to those appearing in novel section. So they're actually, in many ways, easier to identify, easier to tackle, less time consuming. This is why I chose novel section, because novel section is the most demanding. So once I tell you the method that applies to the most demanding section, you should be able to tackle less demanding section much more easily. That's my idea. Yeah. So, but you need to tweak. Tweak means you need to change a little bit to apply this method to other sections. Yeah, but I told you that there are about 5 sections in general. Yeah, roughly speaking, there's 5 sections. And novel section is generally considered the most demanding, the most time consuming. I know that there are some exceptions. Yes, some students, I have seen some students telling me that, and I couldn't believe my eyes actually, like the student was losing more points from social science sections than from novels. That's actually, some students have read novels, and I found that some student, even though she or he may not have read tough classics, she has read many modern novels such that she's really fast reader. Then it can make a difference. Actually, you might have much less problem tackling novel sections than science sections. So there are some exceptions to this, and but very small. Many students found novel sections much more demanding, but I have seen some students doing much better in social, novel sections. Yes, so I need to find out, which case each student belongs to. Yes, that's part of the course actually. I need to figure out which one belongs to which case. Okay, did I answer your question? Yes, no?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any more questions? Any general questions about SAT?
Professor Choi,
Yeah.
it's Tim here. I think there's a question on the chat.
Oh, okay.
If you want to check it.
Oh, it says, let me read the question briefly. It says, if we can't assure ourselves within identifying the correct answer for the main purpose, is it most likely for us to get the summarization wrong either? So this specifically involves the main purpose questions, right? So if you didn't get the main purpose question correctly, is that because we didn't get the summarization wrong? Not necessarily. Yeah, there are some exceptions because that is because the way the novels are structured is different from the way scientific or social science articles are structured. When you deal with social science or science articles, yes, once you miss the summary, you're likely to miss the main purpose question because these two are closely related. Because the words used in scientific articles are quite flat, actually. You don't see many big variety. There are very limited words used. It's more to do with the factual issue. So once you get familiar with the issue, you could easily nail the purpose. However, when you're dealing with novels, it's not always the case, because sometimes it's not that easy to summarize the novel, because the author is talking about many things in the same passage. Yes, then you need to know which one is the most difficult, which one is really matters more than the rest of it. Yeah. So basically, I can say that summarizing a novel or the novel passage is not always recommended or always possible. Yeah, many novel passages showing up in SAT are usually, they are typical writing, so you could still find some tendencies. But well, if I take some passages from the famous novel Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov, yikes! Any passages taken from Lolita you cannot have a summary. There's so many different, apparently detached incidents all packed into the same page. Yes, of course, you could still find some underlying clues, but sometimes you cannot summarize the novel. Yeah, but you could still pick out the purpose, because purpose is, what does this section, this passage work? Okay, with regards to the purpose the author took for this novel or something. So sometimes these are different. Yeah, so in tackling novel, it doesn't mean that when you got the summarization wrong, you automatically got the wrong answer for main purpose questions. No, not really. Yeah, you could be lucky. Actually, you could get luckier than that. Yeah, you could get the both. Even if you miss the other, you could still get the other. These are not that closely connected in some cases. This is one of the reasons why I usually tackle some other examples taken from the real SAT novel sections, because this is the one that I chose for today is like a model. It fits the pattern, the more common pattern here. There are some exceptions, but rare, and once you tackle the exception, that's it. There are many other unusual exceptions to the other unusual sample. Eventually, if you know, in some cases, but this usually applies to just one question in the section. Like, if you do not know words, then you're out of luck. Yeah, it's selective though. I still can help these students who do not know many words, that they suffer from lack of vocabulary, just to nail these correct answers for this type of questions here. But this takes a special teaching or a special concern. Basically, I need to probably tell him to avoid some issues because that involves that particular student usually. So, but this involves the problem of vocabulary. Yeah, so this is different. But my answer is no, not directly connected in most cases. You could still get one missing the other. Yes. Yeah, I think my answer is kind of blurry still. The best way to do is to pick up a correct, concrete question given a concrete paragraph. When dealing with SAT, it's best for you to actually tackle actual case, concrete case, Yeah, it's much better. You learn a lot more from tackling a concrete example. Okay, any other questions? Okay, it's about time for us to wrap up then. It's almost 10 minutes past 5. Okay, okay, it's nice having you today on this short lecture or discussion. Okay, this is it. It's actually intuitively more straightforward when you begin to tackle actual questions rather than, because this is more like an outline, just general overview. I specifically just picked up a most challenging case here because usually that's classic novel is more challenging because mainly because of vocabulary. But this is not the whole case. In some cases, you're given a modern novel. This is more typical, much more straightforward, and much clearer to the reader. And they also tackle typical issues. They fit into similar categories. So multicultural conflict, mostly cultural issues, or the conflict between person and the group, this kind of typical cases. So once you get to know the general tendencies found among these modern novels, then you could easily guess actually, because after all, novels are all about human emotions. Yeah. Unlike scientific articles, as one pointed out in the beginning, scientific articles are all about facts, our theory, our views as to the world we live in. Okay, so they're different, quite different actually. However, you could still apply the same method with some tweaks. Tweaks means some alterations, a little bit of changes, because the vocabulary or terms are different. These differences in terms are the main reason for slight changes to my method. Yeah, so this is something I'm going to discuss in my course anyway. How do you change this method slightly? And probably I'll talk about, scientific articles typically have these terms, so make sure to circle these terms whenever you run into them, then you get the idea. Yeah, because scientists are usually really trying hard to avoid using, some blurry metaphors or, emotional terms. If there is, really important, because the scientist going overboard and he's trying to, or she's trying to justify it using a very strong evidence in this case. So actually, when you see it because it cries out for questions and you get to see the clue clearly there. So basically my role is to tell you how to pinpoint those clues in the passage. Okay, yeah.
Professor Choi, do you want me to do the wrap up?
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I may. Okay, guys.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for having you guys. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor Choi. Honestly, I think you guys should have learned a lot from this session. I myself was watching and learning myself, so I can tell you that everything that came out of Professor Choi's mouth there was golden. I think his strategy is very unique, very foolproof. I think particularly for literature passages involving novels. So I think you should definitely take it to heart. Hopefully you guys took a lot of notes. Okay, and thank you to those guys who participated. Okay, it's a real pleasure to have all of you in this in our first free session where we talk about SAT reading. Now, before you guys go, just want to point out a couple things. Next Saturday, same time, Professor Choi will be doing a free session about essay writing, right? So I hope you guys are interested in participating in that as well. I can tell you that Professor Choi has looked over many essays written by middle school students and high school students applying to colleges or for just generally for school assignments. Right, Professor Choi, you've looked over hundreds of essays by now, and he goes through essays with the red pen and fixes every single sentence. So he's a guru when it comes to proofreading essays, I think, in my opinion, right? So
I have looked over 6,000 college grade essays so far.
Yes, that is in the past, how many, like in the past 20 years of his career, he has looked over, right? Tons of essays. So I'm pretty sure he has a lot of wisdom to drop onto you guys next Saturday from 3 to 5 p.m. So please be there, okay? And also just another thing, we have our 뮤랭아카데미 seminar, free seminar. We're just going to be introducing what kind of courses we're going to be opening in the month of August. We're going to have our website launching next week. So be on the lookout for that, guys. And the kind of classes that will be opening towards the end of August will include book clubs for middle school students, elementary school students, high school students. I'll be doing book clubs for middle school and elementary school students. Professor Choi will be in charge of high school student book clubs. I'll be in charge of middle school essay writing. He'll be in charge of high school essay writing. And we're both going to be having SAT reading classes, SAT writing and language classes, and so forth. So I hope you guys will be interested in signing up for those courses after having heard Professor Choi talk about, he is the master when it comes to SAT reading. So I definitely think you guys would be interested in taking his course. He has a lot to say about the other types of passages as well: science passages, history passages, comparative passages. So please take an interest. I think that really wraps up today's seminar, and we hope to see you next week, same time, for the essay writing free seminar. Okay? Sounds good, guys? All right. 오늘 참석해 주셔서 너무 감사합니다. 네.
네, 고맙습니다.
네, 감사합니다. 혹시라도 문의사항 있으시면 카톡 채널로 문의 남겨주시면 되고요. 뭐 이메일로도 저희한테 컨택트 주셔도 됩니다. 네. 감사합니다.
고맙습니다.
네, 감사합니다. 수고하셨습니다.